Hi friends, Mindy here. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a little bit of a craft with me junk journal start to finish situation. I came up with this idea. I've had these vintage file folders. They're like little divider cards of some kind. I don't even know. But they've been in my stash forever and I thought these would make a really fun cover. So I'm planning to kind of join them like this. So the little tabs are on the side and they measure roughly 9 by 6. So if you take an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper and fold it in half, it works perfectly in this size of journal. This is not a journal size that I typically do. I've mentioned that in other videos. Usually I do mine, more like 5 by 7, but I thought this would be fun, especially for some of the other papers that I'm going to be using. So I've been asked frequently about, what you can use in a junk journal. If it has to be all vintage, the answer to that obviously is no. I think you can make a junk journal out of whatever you want. I know that some people have differing opinions on that, but this has been in my stash forever. This is the coffee collection from Echo Park. And I have the collection kit and then I have the extra paper pack. And so I'm going to be using this as kind of the base for my signature today. And I'm going to be adding in some other papers, but if you wanted to do a junk journal feel out of just the scrapbook papers, you absolutely can do that. If you want bright and happy colors and things, it's absolutely, you should do it that way. That's just my own personal opinion. I personally love coffee. I love this paper pack collection. So I thought it would be fun to make a journal. Now, normally when I start journals, I start them from the cover and then I do the signatures. I'm going to be doing that opposite today. I need to start with the signatures because I don't know how big to make my spine. And so, I am going to be using this 12 by 12 paper. Like I said, this will be the bulk. I'll be having some coffee dyed paper in there as well. And I wanted to share some of the other things. Now, I know that I said you don't have to use vintage paper. I like vintage paper. I like antique paper. I like the different aspects of the textures and the fonts and all the different things, the feel of the paper and all of that. I'm a very tactile person when it comes to that. So I'm going to be adding those in, but you certainly don't have to, but these are what I'm going to be adding in. So I have this vintage ledger. This is, ginormous, and so I'll be obviously cutting it down, but I'm very excited to use this. I have shared this in a haul recently, and also if you're in my Facebook group, you will have seen that I have had packs of these for sale. So if that's something that you're interested in, you can head over to my Facebook group. I do have a link for that in the description, but not trying to like sell. I just wanted to share that that's where this came from. Anyway, so I also really enjoy things that kind of just look like texture or visual interest, but aren't, like for instance, these pages, these are just like mathematical calculations that have been typed out. And so I love all of numbers all the time, and so I'm going to be using some of these. I like the size of this. Obviously these are going to be a little bit smaller than my journal here. Let me pull this out just so you can see, but this is another aspect of a junk journal that I really enjoy, is having different sizes of pages. So I'll kind of have different things staggered in, additional things. I may even add some envelopes or something. I haven't gotten that yet, but I'm definitely going to be adding these pages. Another thing I really, really love is foreign language pages. And this one is an old German page. I believe this book is from the 1800s, maybe early 1900, but this particular book is old, and it just has that beautiful font. Now, for these, again, because of the size of them, I don't want to take them and fold them in half. That would make them just a little bit too small for my particular journal. So I'm going to try to keep as much of the height of these as I possibly can. So when I pulled these, I pulled them so that I have the folio, which is the page, folded in half. And then I have obviously some holes here, which is going to weaken this on the spine. And so I need to reinforce this. There's a couple of different ways that you can do this. There's actually multiple ways. You could use washi tape. Certainly, if you do use that, I would suggest adding a layer of glue. I don't really trust washi tape. So I'm going to be doing that another way. I just recently saw somebody that used like the paper tape for medical tape to do that as well. Certainly an option, but I want to be able to reinforce these that are folded together. And it's also just a good way to kind of be able, to if you want to extend a page, if you have something that's really narrow and you want to extend it, being able to kind of layer them and do that. There's a couple different ways to do that. And so that's one of the pages that I'm going to be doing is this German book font, which is, I mean, it's just beautiful. And then I have this smaller page. This is from a New Standard Encyclopedia. It was in a really small book, but I loved the size of this. I love the color, that the patina and stuff that's happened on that page. This one is actually from Sweden. And so again, I just have a really interesting font here to look at, I think. And so these are bigger pages, so I'll be able to do something with this to make that work. I'm also, this is not vintage, obviously. This is just some craft paper that has a dot grid on there, which may go in, as well as this is from a typing book, the kind that has, you know, they're bound at the top and you flip this way. So I'm going to add some of these in here. And I thought I had some music paper. I don't know where I said it, but I do have some of that. So I'm going to put you on fast forward and I'm going to start doing the signature first. And again, I'm doing the signature first this time because I need to know how big to make my spine. I don't want to end up with a super large spine and then have to try to, you know, make the journal. I really want to do the actual signature first. So I'm going to put you on fast forward. I'm going to start cutting down these papers and make a signature, and then stay tuned for part 2 where we actually do the cover. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do here is pull out the pattern paper that I want to use. So this is from the collection pack. As you can see, there are some of those that have those cut apart sections, and so I pulled those out because I will use those to decorate the pages, to make some tags, to make some pockets and tuck spots and all of those kinds of things to actually decorate this journal down the road. But there's this one page here that has all of these really hilarious quotes on it, and I thought about cutting them apart, but in the end I decided to just go ahead and use this page as an actual page in the journal, just because I think it's cute. It kind of looks like chalkboard to me a little bit. And then from the other paper pack that I have, there are some duplicate designs, but there are also these pages that have just solid color. They're one color on one side and a different color on the back side. And so it just gets a lot of extra interest for the journal and pulls in the whole color palette of the collection together. And so I am going to use those as well. So I'm just going to cut everything down to 8.5 by 11, at least in terms of these pattern papers. That's the size that I'm going to be doing. That way, when I use the coffee dyed papers, they'll be the same size, and then everything else will kind of be varying sizes. So I just took a minute and trimmed those down. I also had to trim down this ledger, which I ended up getting 2 sheets of 8.5 by 11 basically out of this, and then I have the scraps. I will save the scraps for all of this because those will end up being the things that I create the pockets and tags and tuck spots and everything to keep the journal itself really cohesive, even though there are, you know, vintage things in it and non-vintage things. So I'm going through here and just gently folding all of my pages of this scrapbook paper. It's a thicker paper, to be honest, and so I was afraid of going in there too hard at first. I didn't want it to crack, and so I just went in there lightly, and then I will come back through with a bone folder later on to really get my signature you know, before I actually sew it in, which will obviously be in a different video. But I'm pulling out all of these papers here that I showed at the beginning. This is the one that is the Swedish one, and I was thinking about doing this one as well, where I have it as the folio, but it's a pretty big book. So what I decided to do is just take a page from this, and I'm just tearing off that glued edge right here off camera. Sorry about that. But and then I'm just going to fold this one in half. I like having all of the different sizes and textures, and I just think that makes a really interesting journal. And so I did try to keep some pages like that ledger page that's a little bit of a brighter white, and then it's not a bright white, but it's, you know, it's not as vintage at looking as like the coffee dyed paper or whatever. And then this page here, I needed to trim off this top section. It was just a little bit too damaged. And I was debating about how I wanted to put this in the journal. I thought about doing like long and skinny. In the end, I decided to just fold this in half, and it will go so that it's basically sideways in the journal, which is fine with me. And then I have another music paper, and this one is really old. This is actually from like a kid's songbook, which is so cute. And I shared this one actually on one of my recent videos because it has really fun silhouette pictures and stuff in it. But I just took one of those pages as well. And because the book was so big, I was able to just fold it in half and it fit in there perfectly. And then I'm just going to go through here and now kind of alternate these papers and get them sort of in the idea for the signature. So I'm starting with a pattern paper that I know I want to be the first thing that you see when you open the cover. And then I'm just going to go through and alternate like the ledger or the book paper or, you know, the coffee dyed paper, and just trying to get a good variety, and then adding in those solid colored papers. There's going to be a lot of decorating that I need to do in this journal, which I will do in a second video, but I want to now fix these pages. These are the ones that I'm going to be using as a folio. And so obviously where they were sewn into the books that they came from, you can see the holes down the middle of this. And so I am actually using, this is basically the paper shipping tape that you would like close a box with. You get it wet and it's very sticky. It's very fibrous, and it actually makes a really great kind of reinforcement. I've actually created an entire journal using this, where I just glued it onto single sheets of paper and I was able to create a whole journal, and it stayed together really well. So it's just very sticky if you decide to use this. So I am just trimming it down. I ended up cutting it in half because it's about 3 inches wide, and I obviously didn't need that much. So I'm just spraying that off camera there with my water bottle and trying to line this up. Now, I recommend, if you're going to do this, to keep those pages a little bit longer than you need, if instead of trying to get them like edge to edge, because it's very sticky, and once it's down, it's down. And so, especially on some of these older pages that are just already fragile, I don't want to try to pull it back up. I did get this one a little crooked, and that's okay. When I go to decorate the pages, I will be able to hide that, so I'm not worried about it. And I only did it on the outside of the signature or the folio. You could certainly do it on the inside. I just don't think that it's necessary for this particular paper. It's a very thin paper, and this is pretty sturdy tape. So I'm going to do this to this other folio. This is the encyclopedia page. And again, just kind of trimming it down a little bit so that there's not so much gluey pieces, and then I'm just adding the water off camera there, and actually got this one on straight, so that was a bonus. But I really feel like this is going to be sturdy enough. Now you could certainly add washi down the middle if you wanted to. You could do the medical tape that people use. I've seen people reinforce these with old tea bags as well. That's an option. So just something to kind of give that a little bit of extra strength down the spine. And then I'm going to put these back into my journal here, just find the right place for them in the signature. And now I'm going to pull my covers here so you can kind of get an idea for where I'm headed with this journal. So these are going to be my covers. And I'm probably going to cover that with fabric or the scrapbook paper. I haven't quite decided, but you can see the flip through here. I just tried to alternate the pattern papers and the other types of paper, and then a solid color and then a pattern paper, and then, you know, all the way through all of this. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of decorating that needs to be done to add some interest to this, and then the cover as well. So those will be a couple upcoming videos. So be on the lookout for that. In the end, I think I'm going to need about a 1-inch spine. That's kind of what I was measuring right there. So if you liked this video, I would appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. My Facebook group information will be in the description. And until next time, bye.